Welcome to CEO's Library, the 1% bookshelf. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a game-changing book that could revolutionize the way you think about teamwork and leadership. Imagine a team so cohesive and high-performing that it leaves competitors in the dust. A team where trust runs deep, ideas flow freely, and everyone is laser-focused on achieving extraordinary results. Sounds too good to be true? Well, stick around because today, we're going to show you how to build exactly that kind of team. In this episode, we're exploring The Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. This isn't just another dry business book, it's a powerful fable that uncovers the core issues that can cripple even the most talented teams. But more importantly, it provides a clear roadmap for overcoming these dysfunctions and building a truly unstoppable team. Whether you're a CEO, a middle manager, or just someone who wants to understand why some teams soar while others struggle, this episode is for you. We'll break down each of the five dysfunctions, explore why they're so damaging, and give you practical strategies to overcome them. By the end of this show, you'll have a toolkit for transforming your team dynamics and achieving breakthrough results. So, are you ready to unlock the secrets of building an exceptional team? Let's dive in. Before we get into the meat of the book, let's set the stage. Patrick Lencioni, the author, is a renowned business consultant who's worked with organizations of all sizes, from Fortune 500 companies to high-tech startups. He's seen firsthand how dysfunctional teams can drag down even the most promising businesses. But he's also seen how addressing these dysfunctions can lead to remarkable turnarounds. Now, here's the thing that might surprise you. Lencioni argues that teamwork is not about mastering subtle, sophisticated theories. It's about embracing common sense with uncommon levels of discipline and persistence. In other words, the principles are simple, but putting them into practice is where the real challenge lies. So, what are these five dysfunctions that can derail even the most talented teams? They are: 1. Absence of trust. 2. Fear of conflict. 3. Lack of commitment. 4. Avoidance of accountability. 5. Inattention to results. These dysfunctions build on each other, forming a model where each layer is crucial for the next. If you've ever been part of a dysfunctional team, and let's face it, who hasn't, you've probably seen some or all of these in action. But the good news is, once you understand them, you can start to address them. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Let's start with the foundation of it all: trust. But not just any kind of trust. Lencioni talks about vulnerability-based trust. Now, I know what you're thinking. Vulnerability in the workplace? Isn't that the last thing we want? But hear me out, because this kind of trust is the bedrock of high-performing teams. Think back to a time when you were on a team where people were guarded, where they were unwilling to admit mistakes or ask for help. How did that impact the team's performance? Chances are, it led to a lot of wasted time and energy as people tried to manage impressions and protect themselves. Vulnerability-based trust is different. It's about creating an environment where team members can be completely open with one another, where they can admit their weaknesses, ask for help, and take risks without fear of reprisal. It's about being human. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds great in theory, but how do we actually build that kind of trust? Well, Lencioni offers several practical exercises. One of my favorites is the personal histories exercise. It's simple, but powerful. Team members take turns answering a few questions about their lives. Things like where they grew up, how many siblings they have, and what was the most challenging aspect of their childhood. It might sound a bit like a get-to-know-you game at summer camp, but don't underestimate its impact. When people share these personal details, it helps break down barriers. It allows team members to see each other as human beings, with lives and experiences outside of work. And that's the first step towards building empathy and understanding. Another useful tool is using personality assessments like the Myers-Briggs type indicator. These can help team members understand each other's behavioral preferences and work styles. When you understand why your colleague prefers to process information out loud while you need quiet time to think, it becomes much easier to work together effectively. But here's the kicker: the leader has to go first. If you're leading a team, you need to be the first one to be vulnerable. Share your weaknesses. Admit when you don't have all the answers. Ask for help when you need it. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it sets the tone for the entire team. Remember, building trust isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that requires consistent effort, but the payoff is huge. When there's trust, people spend their energy and attention on the work at hand, rather than on protecting themselves or navigating politics. And that leads us to the next dysfunction: fear of conflict. Now, when we talk about conflict in teams, we're not talking about interpersonal bickering or arguments. We're talking about the ability to have passionate, unfiltered debates about ideas. And believe it or not, this kind of conflict is absolutely crucial for team success. Think about a time when an important issue wasn't discussed openly in your team. Maybe it was an elephant in the room that everyone could see but no one wanted to address. What was the cost of that silence? Chances are, it led to suboptimal decisions, festering resentments, or missed opportunities. Lencioni argues that teams that fear conflict have boring meetings, create environments where back-channel politics thrive, and fail to tap into all the opinions and perspectives of team members. In contrast, teams that engage in productive conflict solve real problems quickly. They have lively, interesting meetings, and they put critical topics on the table for discussion. But here's the thing. Many of us have been conditioned to avoid conflict, especially at work. We worry about hurting people's feelings or creating tension. But Lencioni argues that by avoiding conflict, we're actually creating more tension in the long run. So, how do we encourage productive conflict? One technique Lencioni suggests is to have a minor of conflict in team meetings. This person's job is to call out sensitive issues and push the team to work through them. It requires courage, but it can be incredibly effective. Another strategy is to give real-time permission to engage in conflict. When you see team members becoming uncomfortable with disagreement, interrupt and remind them that what they're doing, having a passionate debate about ideas, is not only okay, but necessary for the team's success. It's also crucial to distinguish between productive conflict and personal attacks. Productive conflict is always about ideas, not personalities. As a leader, you need to model this behavior and shut down any attempts to make disagreements personal. Remember, the goal of conflict isn't conflict itself. It's to produce the best possible solution in the shortest period of time. Teams that engage in productive conflict emerge from heated debates with no residual feelings or collateral damage, but with an eagerness and readiness to take on the next important issue. And this brings us to our third dysfunction: lack of commitment. Now, you might think that if a team has trust and can engage in healthy conflict, commitment would naturally follow. But it's not always that simple. Imagine a team that's paralyzed by the need for consensus. They debate endlessly, but can never seem to make a decision and move forward. Or a team that makes decisions, but without any real buy-in from team members. Both of these scenarios stem from a lack of commitment. Lencioni defines commitment as clarity and buy-in. It's about making clear decisions and rallying behind those decisions, even if individual team members initially disagreed. This is crucial because without commitment, you get what Lencioni calls ambiguity and feigned agreement, a recipe for frustration and failure. So, how do we foster true commitment? One key technique is what Lencioni calls cascading messaging. At the end of a meeting, explicitly review the key decisions made and agree on what needs to be communicated to others about those decisions. This simple practice can reveal whether everyone is really on the same page, and it ensures that a consistent message is shared throughout the organization. Another important strategy is to set clear deadlines for decisions. The worst enemy of commitment is ambiguity, and nothing creates ambiguity quite like unclear timelines. By setting and sticking to decision deadlines, you force the team to move forward. It's also crucial to understand that commitment doesn't require consensus. Great teams understand that reasonable human beings don't need to get their way in order to support a decision. They only need to know that their opinions have been heard and considered. As a leader, your job is to ensure that everyone has a chance to weigh in, and then to make a decision, even if everyone doesn't agree. Lencioni also emphasizes the importance of worst-case scenario analysis. Often teams struggle to commit because they're paralyzed to be the wrong decision. By discussing the worst that could happen, teams often realize that the consequences of a poor decision are not as dire as they imagined, and this frees them to move forward. Remember, the goal is not to make perfect decisions. As Lencioni puts it, it's better to make a decision boldly and be wrong than to waffle. Teams can always adjust course if needed, but they can't do anything if they're stuck in analysis paralysis. Now, let's move on to the fourth dysfunction: avoidance of accountability. This one is tricky because it requires team members to step into an uncomfortable space, calling out their peers on behaviors or performance that might hurt the team. Think about it. How often have you seen someone on your team not pulling their weight or behaving in a way that's detrimental to the team's goals, but you hesitated to say anything? It's a common problem, and it can seriously undermine a team's effectiveness. Lencioni defines accountability in this context as the willingness of team members to call their peers on performance or behaviors that might hurt the team. It's about having the difficult conversations, entering the danger, as he puts it. Now, you might think that it's the leader's job to hold people accountable, and yes, ultimately it is. But Lencioni argues that on great teams, peer-to-peer accountability is the primary source of accountability. Why? Because peer pressure is more efficient and effective than having a single leader trying to manage everyone's behavior. So how do we create a culture of accountability? One important strategy is to make goals and standards public. When everyone knows exactly what is expected, it becomes much easier to hold each other accountable. Another technique is to have regular progress reviews. This doesn't have to be a formal, bureaucratic process. It can be as simple as team members regularly communicating with each other about how they feel their teammates are doing against stated objectives. It's also crucial to encourage team members to speak up in the moment when they see something that doesn't align with the team's goals or values. This requires creating an environment where people feel safe to have these difficult conversations. As a leader, your role is to encourage the team to be the first and primary accountability mechanism. But you also need to be willing to serve as the ultimate arbiter of discipline when the team itself fails. It's a delicate balance, but it's crucial for maintaining high standards of performance. Remember, accountability isn't about punishment. It's about helping the team and its members to perform at their best. When done right, it actually strengthens relationships because it demonstrates that you respect your teammates and have high expectations for their performance. And this brings us to our final dysfunction: inattention to results. This might seem like an obvious one. Of course, teams should focus on results, right? But you'd be surprised how often teams lose sight of their collective goals. Lencioni defines results as the collective goals of the team, not individual career objectives, not departmental achievements, but the specific measurable outcomes that define the team's success. The problem is that many teams get distracted by other things. Maybe it's team status. Being part of an elite group becomes more important than what the group actually achieves. Or maybe it's individual status. Team members focus on advancing their own careers at the expense of the team's goals. So, how do we keep the focus on collective results? One powerful technique is to make results clear and public. Lencioni suggests that teams that are willing to commit publicly to specific results are more likely to work with a passionate, even desperate desire to achieve those results. Another strategy is to tie rewards directly to team results. This doesn't mean ignoring individual contributions, but it does mean making it clear that the team's success is the primary goal. It's also important to keep the team's goals front and center. Start every meeting with a review of the team's goals and current progress. Celebrate milestones along the way. Make it impossible for team members to forget what they're working towards. As a leader, you play a crucial role here. You need to set the tone by constantly focusing on team results. If team members sense that you value anything other than results, like, say, harmony or consensus, they'll take that as permission to do the same. Remember, a team that is focused on collective results retains achievement-oriented employees, minimizes individualistic behavior, and enjoys success and suffers failure together. It's the ultimate measure of a high-performing team. So, there you have it, the 5 dysfunctions of a team and how to overcome them. Trust, conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. Each builds on the one before it, creating a model for teamwork that can transform your organization. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but can it really work in practice? The answer is a resounding yes. Lencioni has used this model with countless teams across various industries, and the results speak for themselves. But here's the thing. It's not a quick fix. Building a truly cohesive team takes time and consistent effort. You'll have good days and bad days. There will be times when you feel like you're sliding backwards. That's normal. The key is to stay committed to the process, to keep working at it day after day. So, where do you start? I'd suggest beginning with an honest assessment of your team. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? You might even consider having each team member complete Lencioni's team assessment, which you can find in the book. Then, start with trust. Remember, as a leader, you need to go first. Be vulnerable, admit your weaknesses, ask for help. Create an environment where it's safe for others to do the same. From there, work on each dysfunction in order, encourage healthy conflict, push for clear commitments, foster peer-to-peer accountability, and always keep the focus on collective results. It won't be easy. There will be uncomfortable moments. You might have to have some difficult conversations. You might even lose some team members along the way. But the payoff, a high-performing, cohesive team that achieves extraordinary results, is worth it. Remember, at its core, teamwork comes down to practicing a small set of principles over a long period of time. It's not about mastering complex theories. It's about embracing common sense with uncommon levels of discipline and persistence. So, are you ready to transform your team? Are you ready to overcome these dysfunctions and build something truly exceptional? The journey starts now. Take what you've learned today. Go back to your team and start making changes. Be patient, be persistent, and watch as your team transforms into the high-performing unit you know it can be. Before we wrap up, I want to remind you that we've only scratched the surface of Lencioni's insights in this episode. If you want to dive deeper, I highly recommend getting a copy of The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. You'll find a link to purchase it on Amazon in the episode description. And don't forget, you can find the full transcript of this episode, along with some helpful visualizations, on our website at ceoslibrary.com. Thank you for joining me on CEO's Library, the 1% Bookshelf. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep leading. Your team is counting on you.